Unaware his pregnant wife secretly owned the company he worked for, Lucas strutted through the office every morning with the arrogance of a man who thought he built everything from scratch. To him, she was just Madison, the crippled wife who slowed him down, the woman whose wheelchair reminded him of vows he now saw as shackles. But behind her calm smile and quiet eyes hid the mind of the true owner, the unseen power signing his paychecks. When he divorced her for her best friend, mocking her as useless and walking away with pride, no one in the company dared tell him the truth. But how could a man so proud be so blind? What happens when he realizes the empire he's trying to impress now belongs to the woman he abandoned? And what could a heartbroken, betrayed, yet powerful, pregnant, crippled wife possibly do that would crush them all forever? Before all the chaos, before her body forgot what walking felt like, Madison's mornings began before dawn. She moved through the soft quiet of her little kitchen with the rhythm of someone who believed in peace. Her hands pressed dough, shaping loaves and cinnamon rolls for the customers who would soon fill her shop. The warm hum of the oven, the scent of sugar and spice, it all made her believe her life was blessed. Lucas would appear around 7, hair still damp from a shower, coffee in one hand, charm in the other. To everyone else, he looked like the devoted husband, the kind who helped carry trays, who kissed his wife on the cheek before opening the door for customers. But behind closed doors, their marriage had begun to rot from the inside. He hadn't worked in 2 years. At first, Madison didn't mind. She told herself he needed time to figure things out, to find his purpose again after losing his job at the firm. But as months turned into years and his excuses piled higher than the unpaid bills, her faith in their love began to wear thin. She clung to hope like a thread, telling herself that marriages survived worse. She whispered prayers as she kneaded dough, believing love could fill the cracks that Lucas's resentment left behind. Her mornings were filled with effort, but her evenings were silent, heavy. He would stare at the TV or his phone, barely looking up when she rolled toward him, asking how his day had been. It was on a gray, rainy morning that everything changed. Madison drove her small delivery van to restock supplies from the wholesale bakery 2 towns over. She hummed softly as she drove, watching raindrops race down the windshield. She never saw the truck coming. The world blurred into spinning metal, shattering glass, and the kind of silence that only comes after screaming. When she woke, the first thing she saw was white. Hospital walls, the ceiling light, her mother's trembling hands. The second thing she saw was Lucas, sitting in the corner, scrolling his phone, not looking at her. Panic surged through her body before she even understood why. She tried to move her legs, but nothing happened. The nurse's soft eyes told her the truth before anyone said a word. Her legs were gone to her, paralyzed from the waist down. Her first thought wasn't about herself. It was about him, about Lucas. When he finally met her eyes, his smile didn't reach them. His hand brushed her arm gently, but there was hesitation in his touch, like he was comforting a stranger. "It's going to be fine," he said, but his voice cracked. In that moment, she knew something inside him had already broken, and it wasn't pity. It was love, slipping quietly away. Weeks passed in a blur of pain, surgeries, and medical bills. Madison tried to stay strong, to pretend the weight of her new world didn't crush her spirit. But every night she'd see the empty chair beside her hospital bed and wonder if Lucas was slipping further away. When she was discharged, they returned home to a life that no longer fit. The bakery had to close. She couldn't manage it from her wheelchair yet. The laughter that once filled their small apartment turned into cold silence. Lucas began to sleep in the guest room, claiming he didn't want to disturb her. He came home late. Sometimes not at all. She'd catch faint traces of perfume that wasn't hers, smiles in his voice when he spoke on the phone, but she buried her suspicions. Love, she told herself, doesn't vanish overnight. Love fights, but love can also lie. One night, as rain tapped softly on the windows, she heard his voice in the hallway. Soft, secretive. "Claire." "Not now. She's asleep." Madison froze. Claire, her best friend since college. Her laughter had once filled Madison's kitchen. Her hands had once held Madison's when she cried over Lucas losing his job. And now, her voice whispered back through the crack of the door. "You said you'd tell her soon. I can't keep doing this." Madison's breath shattered. The phone slipped from her hand. The world tilted, and the pain that struck her chest was worse than the accident. The betrayal wasn't just his, it was hers too. The next morning, when she confronted Lucas, her tears trembled, but her voice did not. "You were supposed to love me," she said, "not destroy me." He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just looked at her, cold, distant, and said, "You're not the woman I married anymore." Then he walked out. For days after Lucas left, silence became Madison's closest companion. It sat beside her at breakfast, followed her through the apartment, and echoed in the spaces his voice used to fill. Her world had shrunk to the four walls of a place that no longer felt like home. She stared at the empty side of the bed where he once slept, the dent in the pillow still shaped like his absence. The betrayal gnawed at her, slow and constant, like a wound that refused to close. Even Claire's name burned in her chest whenever she thought of their laughter together. The trust she had given so freely now turned to ash. Her mother called every evening, urging her to hold on. "You're stronger than this, Maddie. Don't let them take your joy." But Madison's voice stayed small, weak, almost childlike. "I don't even know who I am anymore, Mom." She wanted to mean those words as a cry for help, but they came out like a confession of defeat. The bakery was gone. Bills piled higher than hope. Each envelope that arrived in the mail was another reminder of everything she had lost: her business, her body, her marriage, her best friend. The woman she used to be had vanished somewhere between the crash and the heartbreak. Every day she looked at her reflection and saw a stranger. Then one afternoon, a plain envelope slipped through the mail slot. No return address. The paper was thick, professional, embossed with the name of a law firm she didn't recognize. At first, she almost threw it away, assuming it was another medical bill. But something, perhaps desperation, perhaps intuition, made her tear it open. Inside was a letter from Thompson and Reed Legal Associates, signed by Mr. Benjamin Thompson, her late uncle's attorney. The words barely made sense at first. Her uncle, a man she barely remembered, had passed away months ago. He had left her a significant inheritance, over $100 million, with a single condition. She must keep it secret for 6 months before it could be legally transferred and announced. Madison's breath caught. She read the letter 3 times, her trembling hands struggling to hold it steady. It felt like a cruel joke. How could a woman who had lost everything suddenly hold more than she could imagine? She called the number at the bottom, her voice shaky. The lawyer confirmed every word. Her uncle, he said, had admired her kindness, her perseverance, her quiet faith. "He saw in you," the man said softly, "a goodness the world rarely rewards. He wanted to make sure life gave back what it took away." When the call ended, Madison sat in stunned silence. For the first time in months, her tears weren't from grief. They were from disbelief. The universe had finally whispered back, "You've suffered enough." That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling. The letter sat on her nightstand, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Lucas's last words replayed in her mind. "You're not the woman I married anymore." Maybe he was right. Maybe she wasn't. Maybe she was something stronger, someone reborn through fire. A week later, Lucas showed up at her door. His face was thinner, his voice quieter, but his eyes, those same confident, manipulative eyes, still searched for weakness. "Maddie," he said, his voice trembling with rehearsed guilt, "I made a mistake." She watched him carefully, saying nothing. He knelt beside her wheelchair, took her hand, and spoke like a man trying to buy back his comfort. "I miss you. Claire, she was nothing. I was angry, lost. I just want us back." She almost laughed. Almost. The old her, the woman who used to bake at dawn and pray for love's endurance, might have believed him, but now she only saw the emptiness behind his apology. "Lucas," she said softly, "you didn't lose me because I changed. You lost me because you stopped seeing me." When he realized she wouldn't bend, the mask slipped. "Fine," he spat, standing. "Good luck finding someone who'll want a crippled wife with nothing left." His words sliced through her, but she didn't flinch. She simply turned her chair and shut the door. 2 days later, Claire came knocking. She carried a latte and an expression rehearsed for sympathy. "I just wanted to check on you," she said, voice trembling. "I feel so guilty. I never meant to hurt you." Madison met her eyes calmly. "You knew exactly what you were doing." Claire's lips quivered. Then she tried a new tactic. "Are you doing okay? I mean, financially?" The faintest glint of greed flickered in her gaze. Madison almost smiled. "I'm managing," she said, keeping her tone light. "I've had a bit of good luck." Claire's interest sharpened, but Madison offered nothing more. When Claire finally left, pretending tears, Madison felt something she hadn't felt in months. Control. For the first time, she wasn't the one being pitied. She was the one holding the secret that could change everything. With the inheritance locked away under the clause of secrecy, she began rebuilding quietly. She reopened her recipes, bought small supplies under her mother's name, and started baking again from her apartment kitchen. The first batch of cookies she sold online under a pseudonym sold out in a week. Customers left glowing reviews, warm, honest flavors, like hope in every bite. Every morning, as the scent of cinnamon and vanilla filled her home, Madison began to feel her spirit returning. The accident had broken her body, but it hadn't broken her soul. She worked silently, determined not to repeat the mistakes of her past. No more blind trust, no more begging for love. And yet, late at night, when the oven cooled and the world fell still, she whispered a prayer, not for revenge, but for the strength to become everything they thought she couldn't be. Weeks bled into months, and Madison's kitchen became a temple of rebirth. The soft whir of mixers and the gentle clatter of trays replaced the silence that once haunted her apartment. Flour dusted the counters like snow, sugar glimmered under warm light, and her laughter, tentative at first, began to return in small, genuine bursts. Her hands remembered every rhythm of baking, every detail of creation. What she had once done out of habit, she now did out of healing. The online shop she started quietly, under the name Morning Grace, grew faster than she ever imagined. Orders came in from across the state. People wrote to her, saying her pastries felt like hope in the shape of bread. She never told them who she was or what she'd endured. She didn't need to. Her story was baked into every loaf. But as her world expanded, so did the whispers. Her neighbors began to notice new delivery trucks at her door, upgraded equipment sneaking into her apartment. Some thought a man must be helping her. Others thought she'd won the lottery. Madison let them think what they wanted. Secrets had become her shield. Then one morning, as she struggled to lift a crate of flour, a familiar voice came from the doorway. "Need a hand?" She turned and saw Nathan, a childhood friend she hadn't seen in years. He'd been the boy who used to hang around her bakery, always asking for free cookies, always smiling with shy sincerity. Now he was a man, steady, kind-eyed, with a quiet strength that didn't need to be announced. "Nathan?" she said, surprised. He smiled, brushing a lock of hair from his forehead. "Heard through your mom you were baking again. Thought I'd stop by, see if you needed some muscle. You know, for the heavy stuff." His voice was warm, unpretentious, and for the first time in a long time, Madison didn't feel small in someone's presence. She accepted his help reluctantly at first, but soon he became a fixture in her days. He delivered orders, repaired shelves, and, when business slowed, sat with her over coffee, listening more than talking. He never treated her like she was broken. He treated her like she was whole. When one afternoon, while they packaged boxes together, he said gently, "You know, you could make this huge. You've got something real here, Maddie." She smiled faintly. "Maybe someday." "Why not now?" he asked. "You've already got the heart. All that's left is the world finding out." She paused, gazing at the cookies cooling by the window. "Because sometimes the world doesn't deserve to know everything. Not yet." He didn't press further. He just nodded, as if he understood that there were ghosts in her silence. While Madison's world filled with quiet growth, Lucas and Claire's began to decay. Word reached her through mutual friends. Lucas had lost his latest job after being caught falsifying numbers at the office. Claire's boutique had closed due to debt. Together, they were crumbling under the weight of their own choices. Still, Madison felt no satisfaction. She had learned that revenge was a hollow victory. What mattered now was peace, yet fate had its own sense of irony. One rainy afternoon, as Madison and Nathan loaded cookies into the van, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "I know you're doing well. We should talk." It was Lucas. She stared at the screen for a long time, her heart steady, her mind calm. The old Madison would have cried, would have hoped for an apology. But now she only felt distant curiosity, like watching a stranger reach for something long lost. She didn't reply. That night, another message arrived. "You owe me, Maddie. You think you'd even survive without me?" She smiled faintly. "I already did," she whispered, setting the phone face down on the counter. In the weeks that followed, Madison poured her energy into expansion. With Nathan's help, she built a website that told the story of Morning Grace. Not the pain behind it, but the light it created. They filmed short videos of her process, her laughter, her creations. Orders tripled. Her inbox flooded with messages from people thanking her for inspiring them to start over. Nathan watched her one evening as she piped frosting onto cupcakes, the sunset washing the kitchen in gold. "You ever think about opening another shop?" he asked. She looked up, meeting his gaze. "Not just a shop, a place for people like me, for anyone who's been written off, left behind, or told they couldn't rise again." His smile widened. "You're serious?" "I am," she said quietly, "but I want to do it right. When the time comes, I'll make it more than a bakery. I'll make it a second chance for everyone who needs one." Nathan nodded, admiration in his eyes. "Then I'll be there, whatever you need." Outside, thunder rolled softly, a low, distant echo. It reminded her of the night she'd discovered Lucas's betrayal, but this time, it didn't make her flinch. It only reminded her of how far she'd come. She thought of the inheritance, the secret she had guarded for months, and how it would soon be fully hers to use. She could feel her late uncle's voice in the back of her mind. Use it to heal what the world breaks. As she turned off the lights and rolled toward her bedroom, she glanced once more at the glowing oven. The soft hum filled the air like a heartbeat. She smiled to herself, whispering, "They thought I was broken, but maybe I was just being remade." Far across town, Lucas sat in a dimly lit bar, a drink sweating in his hand, scrolling through Morning Grace's website. He didn't know it was hers yet, not yet, but the cookies looked familiar, the handwriting on the packaging too delicate to mistake. He leaned back, suspicion flickering behind his bleary eyes. "Couldn't be," he muttered, but somewhere inside the truth was beginning to take root, and when it finally bloomed, it would destroy what little pride he had left. The letter came on a crisp morning in late spring. The city was still waking, golden sunlight filtering through Madison's kitchen blinds when the envelope slid under her door. She stared at it for a long moment, heart pounding as if it already knew what it contained. The 6 months had passed. The clause had ended. With trembling hands, she opened it. And inside were documents confirming what had once felt like a dream. Her uncle's estate was now fully hers. The inheritance, every dollar, every asset belonged to Madison Grace Evans. The woman who had once been pitied, abandoned, forgotten, now stood at the center of her own empire. She pressed a hand to her chest, tears slipping down her cheeks. Not tears of disbelief this time, but of gratitude. Her uncle had trusted her to turn pain into purpose, and now she would honor that faith. She would build something that could outlive the betrayal, the pity, the whispers. 2 months later, a new sign appeared on the corner of Main and Briar Street. Morning Grace Bakery and Community Hub. The windows shimmered with sunlight, and the scent of cinnamon, fresh bread, and roasted coffee spilled onto the street. Inside, the space buzzed with warmth, soft music, laughter, and the quiet hum of hope. Madison didn't just hire bakers. She hired people like her. Those life had bruised and broken, but not destroyed. A young single mother who'd been evicted, a veteran with a prosthetic leg, a teenage boy with a stutter who no one else would hire. She gave them all a place, a paycheck, and a reason to believe again. The bakery's story spread like wildfire. Local news outlets covered it, calling Madison the miracle baker. They spoke of resilience, grace, and the mysterious owner who had risen from tragedy to triumph. Her photo, smiling, poised in her wheelchair with flour on her hands, graced magazine covers. And for the first time, Madison didn't shy away from the light. Nathan stood beside her through it all. He became her anchor, her quiet strength. Their connection had grown into something deep and unspoken, a love built not on pity or need, but on mutual respect and quiet understanding. When the press called him the man behind her success, he only laughed and said, "No, she was always her own power, but peace has a way of attracting ghosts." It was a bright Friday morning when Lucas and Claire walked through the glass doors of Morning Grace. The room stilled. Madison was at the counter, speaking with a supplier, when the bell chimed and she turned. Time seemed to stretch thin between them. Lucas looked older, his eyes hollow, his clothes rumpled. Pride eroded. Claire's once-groomed beauty had wilted. Desperation clung to her like a shadow. "Madison," Lucas said softly, as if her name still belonged to him, "you look incredible." Her employees glanced nervously at her, sensing the tension. Madison, calm as still water, folded her hands. "What do you want, Lucas?" He forced a smile, gesturing around. "I heard about the bakery. It's amazing. You really did it. I, wanted to apologize for everything." Claire stepped forward, her voice syrupy but cracking underneath. "We've had a rough time, Maddie. We're not doing so great. We just thought maybe you could help. You've always been generous." The irony almost made her laugh. These were the same mouths that once called her useless, the same hands that betrayed her, now stretched out in need. "Help?" Madison asked softly. "You mean after you both tore my world apart?" Lucas looked away, shame flickering across his face. "People make mistakes." She studied him for a long moment, then said, "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice." Her voice was even, almost gentle, but her words hit like steel. "And choices have consequences." Claire's composure cracked. "You think you're better than us now?" she snapped, eyes wet. "Just because you got lucky?" Madison's gaze sharpened. "No, Claire, I'm not better. I'm just free." Lucas's pride twisted into anger. "You think this little bakery makes you untouchable?" Madison smiled faintly. "It's not little. It's mine." At that moment, one of the employees, a young girl with braces, walked up and handed Madison a folder. "The donation paperwork, Ms. Evans." Lucas blinked. "Evans? Wait, you own this place?" Madison turned to him fully, her expression serene. "Not just this place, Lucas. The company you work for, the one you bragged about running? I've owned that too for 6 months." His mouth fell open. "What?" "I kept it quiet," she said, her tone calm. "You see, my late uncle left me his holdings, including controlling shares in the company you joined after you left me. The same company that laid you off." Color drained from his face. Claire's lips trembled. "You knew?" Madison's smile was soft but final. "I always knew. I just waited." The room went silent except for the hum of the espresso machine. She gestured subtly toward the door. "You should go. I wish you both peace. Truly. But this chapter of my life doesn't include you." Security approached quietly. Lucas tried to speak, but no words came. Claire grabbed his arm, eyes wide with humiliation. Together they turned and left, the bell above the door chiming softly like the final toll of a broken past. When the door shut, Madison exhaled slowly. Nathan, who had been standing nearby, touched her shoulder gently. "You okay?" She nodded, her eyes glistening, not with pain, but with peace. For the first time, yes. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the ghost that had just been buried inside Morning Grace. Madison turned back to her employees, smiling. "All right, everyone," she said warmly. "Let's get back to work. We've got a community to feed." The room filled with laughter and motion once more. The ovens roared to life, the scent of fresh bread rising into the air like a prayer answered. Madison watched it all, the joy, the purpose, the light, and felt her heart lift. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, she rolled to the window overlooking the street. Families walked by carrying boxes stamped with the bakery's logo. Children licked frosting from their fingers. Life had come full circle. Nathan joined her, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "You know," he said quietly, "I think your uncle would be proud." She smiled, resting her head against his arm. "Maybe, but more than that, I think he'd be grateful, because I finally used the gift the way he meant it, to heal, not to hate." They stood in silence for a while, watching the sunset paint the sky in gold. The bakery lights glowed behind them, warm, steady, eternal. Madison closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "They thought they broke me, but they only gave me a reason to rise." And in that moment, she knew her story was no longer one of tragedy, it was legacy.